to enjoy your time here and find peace in the stories we tell. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. The Pingyang Marquis Manor was abuzz with an eerily festive energy today. In the eastern courtyard, red silks billowed like crimson clouds across the sky, and the blaring notes of suana horns pierced the air, shaking the blue heavens above. It was the wedding music for my younger sister, Shenqiao. Meanwhile, the western courtyard was a sea of stark white banners and mourning flags, with paper money scattered across the ground like fallen snow. This was the scene where I was to embrace a spirit tablet and begin my widowhood vigil for a dead man at the main gate. One side welcomed a bridal sedan chair, the other ushered out a coffin. Everyone in the capital was saying that the Pingyang Marquis Manor was witnessing something unprecedented. Collision of joyous red and mournful white events on the same day. Truly, it was a case of one person's joy being another's sorrow. I sat before the dressing table, staring at the woman in the mirror dressed in pure white mourning clothes that would last a lifetime. No phoenix crown or rosy veil for me, only a single pale white velvet flower pinned coldly in my hair. Eldest young miss, it's time. Nanny Lu, the confidant of my stepmother Madame Wang, pushed open the door and entered, carrying a tray. On it rested the spirit tablet of the man who was supposedly my husband. The tablet was made of the finest, heaviest golden, threaded Namu wood, engraved with large characters, Northern Suppression General Xiaoqi. Nanny Lu wore a mocking smile on her face, not even bothering to conceal it as she said, Madam has instructed that although this General Xiao is deceased, the marriage was bestowed by His Majesty himself. By marrying into his family, eldest young miss will legitimately become a first-rank titled lady. This kind of blessing is something others could only dream of begging for. I rose slowly, extending my hand to accept the heavy tablet. Indeed, fine wood. If used as firewood, it could burn for a full watch of the clock. In a calm voice that betrayed no hint of joy or anger, I replied, if it's truly such a blessing, why doesn't Nanny let your own daughter enjoy it instead? Nanny Lu's face stiffened. Then she shrieked, what kind of words are those, eldest young miss? How could a lowly servant like me have such fortune? Besides, second young miss is marrying Prince Duan as his principal consort. Both marrying a great hero and observing widowhood are glorious deeds that honor our ancestors and the entire Marquis Manor. I ignored her sarcastic barbs and simply asked, have the medical books and ancient texts left by my birth mother been packed into the chest yet? That is my only condition. Madame Wang had exhausted every argument to force me into this proxy marriage with the dead general in place of Shenqiao. The sole condition I demanded in return was to take the chest filled with rare, nearly lost medical classics and ancient texts my late mother had left behind. As for gold, silver, and jewelry, given Madame Wang's miserly nature, comparable to a mythical hoarding beast, she would never part with them. I had no interest in fighting over such things anyway. In this dog-eat-dog world, skills were far more valuable than mere possessions. A flicker passed through Nanny Lu's eyes. She let out a dry laugh. Oh my, eldest young miss, today has been so hectic, Madam must have overlooked it in her haste. Moreover, you're going to Linguan to observe widowhood and cultivate virtue. Why bring those ominous medical books? Madame has prepared an entire set of women's precepts and biographies of chaste widows for you instead. Those are what truly matter. I gazed at Nanny Lu's aged face, which was smiling like a blooming chrysanthemum, and laughed coldly in my heart. As expected, they want to devour everything clean, not even leaving me a single bone fragment. I stroked the cold edge of the spirit tablet and said indifferently, if they haven't been packed, then please trouble Nanny to inform Madam. Without those texts, I will neither embrace this tablet nor step out this door. Oh, my dear eldest young miss, Nanny Lu cried out. The auspicious hour is almost upon us, and the guests outside are all watching. Do you want to force Madam to her death? I lifted my eyes to look at her, my gaze as still as a deep, stagnant pool. And who exactly is forcing whom to death? If I were to smash my head against these 7 steps right now and die, tell me, would His Majesty punish the Marquis Manor for defying the Imperial decree, or would he praise Madame Wang for her excellent child-rearing methods? The implication in my eyes made Nanny Lu stagger back a step. She had never seen the eldest young miss like this before. In her memory, I had always been an invisible child in the rear courtyard, a soft persimmon easily kneaded and shaped by my stepmother. Go pack them. I uttered 3 cold words. Nanny Lu gritted her teeth and stamped her foot before hurrying out. Moments later, 2 young maids, panting heavily, carried in a camphorwood chest. I opened it for a quick glance. The medical texts inside were slightly damp, but thankfully complete. I slammed the lid shut, then turned and embraced the spirit tablet, the corners of my lips curving into an extremely faint smile. Let's go. At the main gate of the Marquis' manor, 2 distinct processions stood in sharp contrast. On the left was Shenqiao's Grand 10 Lai Red Dari procession. The welcoming party from Prince Dawn's estate was magnificent, with gold, silver, and jewels flowing out like water. Shenqiao, dressed in dazzling red wedding attire, supported herself on a maid's arm. Her eyes and brows were filled with triumphant smiles. Upon seeing me standing there in my white mourning clothes, she deliberately paused, calling out sweetly, "Elder sister." I tilted my head to look at her. Shenqiao covered her mouth and giggled. Elder sister is heading to Linguan this time. Though it may be a bit desolate, it is still an imperial mausoleum with excellent feng shui. While enjoying my blessings in the prince's estate, I will pray for elder sister every day, hoping you can live a few more years in that underworld-like place. Murmurs rippled through the surrounding guests, most sighing over the vast difference in fate between the 2 sisters. Madame Wang stood on the steps, dabbing at non-existent tears with a handkerchief. Ninger, once you're there, you must uphold the duties of a wife and preserve the general's family legacy. If you lack anything, just send word back. Mother will always be thinking of you. I watched this mother-daughter pair put on their clumsy act and fed only amusement. I said, "Mother, rest assured, I am embracing the spirit tablet." My clear voice carried far enough for everyone around to hear. Since I am married off, I belong to the Xiao family now. As for whether I will lack anything, I hear that General Xiao performed outstanding military exploits in his lifetime, and His Majesty bestowed countless rewards upon him. The storehouses of the general's manor must be far more abundant than our Marquis' manor. I'm only afraid that there will be too much silver to spend, and I'll have to invite Mother over to help count it. Madame Wang's face froze instantly. She naturally knew that Xiaokli was wealthy, but that wealth had all been sealed by His Majesty inside the underground palace of Linguan. No one but the emperor could touch it. In her eyes, I was simply putting on a brave front. If elder sister thinks so, then younger sister wishes you an early fortune. Shenqiao sneered with a laugh before stepping into the bridal sedan. With the call to lift the sedan, the deafening crack of firecrackers drowned out everything else. I turned and walked toward the shabby horse carriage prepared for me, with its tattered white lanterns. There were no guests to see me off, no family to bid farewell. Only the cold spirit tablet in my arms. The moment I stepped into the carriage and the curtain fell, I let out a long breath. Finally, I've left that disgusting cage. The carriage rattled out of the capital, heading toward Linguan, the Imperial mausoleum estate on the northern outskirts. The name Xiaokui, I've heard of it before. Northern Suppression General Xiaokui was a god of slaughter on the battlefield, the kind of man who could stop children from crying at night. Half a month ago, he was poisoned at the border and couldn't be saved, dying in service. Even his corpse was transported back in a bronze coffin. To honor his merits, His Majesty specially decreed that the eldest daughter of the Marquis' manor, me, should go celebrate the wedding, no, to observe widowhood. Everyone thought I was jumping into a pit of fire. Only I knew this was the freedom I had long prayed for. No more morning and evening greetings. No more reading faces of my stepmother. No more being forced to marry some pot-bellied old noble as a second wife. As long as this Marquis was truly dead, this Linguan would be my own personal kingdom. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but stroke the spirit tablet in my arms and murmur softly, "General Xiao, since I'm borrowing your name, during festivals in the future, I will definitely burn more paper money for you. Let's not interfere with each other. You be your ghost, and I'll be my person." However, I never expected that this wish for mutual non-interference would shatter on the very first night. Night fell unusually early in the capital region. By the time the carriage stopped outside Linguan, the sky was pitch black. All around were endless desolate mountains, with only this solitary mausoleum estate standing tall on the mountainside. The white stone walls gleamed with a cold light under the moon. "Madame has arrived." The carriage driver dumped my luggage onto the ground and fled as if escaping a plague god, disappearing without a trace. I stood before the gates of Linguan, holding the spirit tablet and medical chest, as the heavy doors creaked open. An old woman in gray cloth emerged lantern in hand, Her plump face was domineering as she sized me up. Her cloudy eyes revealed shrewdness and harshness. "Oh, so this is the new madam." The old woman smiled with lips smiling, her lips curling. "This old servant is Nanny Zhao, the stewardess of Linguan. This remote place doesn't have many rules, but once you've entered these gates, you must follow this old one's arrangements." Nanny Zhao was a distant relative of Madame Wang, specially placed here to make things difficult for me. I said nothing, merely nodding. Seeing my seemingly meek and easy, to bully appearance, the contempt in Nanny Zhao's eyes deepened. She led me through a long, winding spirit path flanked by tall stone statues that stood like silent guardians in the darkness. Finally, she brought me to a side room in a corner of the estate. The room was drafty on all sides with half the window paper torn away. Inside were only a broken, legged table and a hard wooden bed. The air carried a faint, musty smell. "Madam can rest here temporarily for tonight," Nanny Zhao said, setting the lantern on the table. "The main chamber is reserved for the general. We living folk cannot clash with the general's heroic spirit." With that, she pulled out a chipped porcelain bowl from her sleeve and tossed it onto the table. Inside was half a bowl of pitch-black congee, topped with a few wilted vegetable scraps emitting a sour, rotten stench. "Shopping is not easy here. Madam can make do with this. This old servant specially saved it for you." Nanny Zhao crossed her arms, her face expectant as if waiting for a good show. I set the chest down, my gaze falling on the bowl of congee. "Is this the dinner the Marquis's manor prepared for a first-rank titled madam?" I raised my head and looked at her calmly. Nanny Zhao sneered. "Madam, do you still think this is the Marquis's manor? Having something to eat here is already good enough. Eat if you want, starve if you don't." She reached out to take the bowl back. "Wait," I called out. Nanny Zhao turned impatiently. "What? Do you want this old servant to feed you?" I slowly pulled a small cloth bundle from my sleeve, unfolding it to reveal a row of silver needles of varying lengths. Under the moonlight, they gleamed with a cold light. "You were sent by Madame Wang." I picked up the longest needle, gently twirling it between my fingers. Nanny Zhao's expression changed. "What do you want?" "I am the one sent by Madame. I don't want to do anything." My tone was as casual as if commenting, "The weather is nice today. I am simply a physician, and these physicians' hands can save lives. Naturally, they can also make life worse than death." I advanced toward her step by step. My voice lowered to an extreme whisper. "There is bean powder and year-old rotten water added to this bowl of congee. Nanny Zhao, you wanted me to suffer severe diarrhea on my first day so you could control me easily, didn't you?" Struck at her core, Nanny Zhao's eyes flashed with panic. But relying on her strong build, she stubbornly retorted. "What nonsense are you spouting? This is good stuff. Really? If it's good stuff, then please, Nanny, eat it for me." Before my words finished, the silver needle in my hand shot out like lightning. Nanny Zhao screamed miserably, clutching her arm and retreating repeatedly. The needle had struck her acupoint, instantly making half her body numb and painful, unable to move. I picked up the rotten congee and advanced, forcing it on her. She shouted, "You dare!" I countered with another needle, this time near her mute acupoint. It didn't render her completely mute, but the intense pain immediately shut her mouth. "I hate wasting food the most." I looked at her coldly. "If you won't eat it yourself, I don't mind using the remaining needles to help you work up an appetite." Looking at the trembling silver needles in my hand, the ferocity in Nanny Zhao's eyes finally turned to fear. As Madame Wang's person, she naturally knew that although this eldest young miss wasn't favored, she did possess some medical skills. She just hadn't expected her temperament to become so ruthless. Under my threat, she tremblingly lifted the bowl and swallowed it with her eyes closed. "Get out." I retracted the needles and pointed toward the door. As if granted amnesty, Nanny Zhao clutched her stomach and scrambled out, even forgetting the tattered lantern. The room finally fell silent. I closed the door and used a needle to adjust the lamp wick, brightening the space a little. I naturally wouldn't eat that congee. Instead, I took out the dried rations I had hidden in my bosom, sipping cold water as I slowly chewed, eating while surveying the dilapidated room. This place was very close to the main tomb chamber. I could even feel waves of cold air drifting over from there. The night was deep, and the wind whistled through the torn windows like a woman's weeping. Ordinary people hearing this would have long hidden under their blankets in fear, but to me, it sounded far more pleasant than the fake laughter back at the Marquis's manor. After finishing the dried meat, I felt no drowsiness. Madame Wang had kept my dowry, but in this Linguan, there were certainly things that belonged to Xiao Kuai. Since I was now the mistress here, everything in this place should be under my management. I picked up the tattered lantern, pushed open the door, and headed toward the main tomb chamber. At the end of the spirit path was the entrance to a massive underground palace. 2 white jade stone doors were tightly shut, sealed with the Imperial family's talisman. But as the one observing the vigil here, I naturally held the key. I tore off the seal, inserted the key, and pushed with force. A harsh grinding sound echoed as the stone doors slowly opened. A bone-chilling wind rushed out, carrying the musty smell of long, sealed darkness and a faint trace of blood. I frowned slightly. This tomb has been sealed for half a month. Why is there a smell of blood? Rising the lantern high, I stepped inside cautiously. The underground palace was vast, with ever-burning lamps inlaid in the 4 walls, though most had gone out. In the center lay a massive golden, threaded Namu coffin, the resting place of Xiao Kui. The bloody scent seemed to emanate from the coffin. Could there be grave robbers? I tightened my grip on the surgical knife hidden in my sleeve. It was taken from the secret compartment of the medical chest and had far greater lethality than the silver needles. Holding my breath, I approached the coffin. Under the flickering light, I saw that the coffin lid was slightly ajar, and beside it on the ground was a pool of blood that hadn't yet dried. My heart skipped a beat. At that moment, an extremely faint breathing sound came from behind the coffin. It was heavy and labored, like someone on the verge of death desperately suppressing their agony. I neither screamed nor turned to flee. Years of survival instinct told me that turning my back to an unknown threat was the stupidest action. I took a deep breath, suddenly raised the lantern high, and the surgical knife in my hand flashed coldly as I pointed directly behind the coffin. "Who's there? Come out!" Silence. After a long moment, a deep, hoarse voice that seemed to crawl up from hell spoke. "So it's actually a woman." Following the voice, a blood-covered hand gripped the edge of the coffin. Then, a tall, dark figure staggered to his feet. It was a man. He wore tattered black burial clothes, with half a broken sword embedded in his chest. Blood stained half his body. His disheveled hair covered half his face, but the exposed eyes were shockingly bright. Like a wolf, a lone wolf gravely wounded yet ready to tear apart its prey at any moment. So this is the legendary Northern Suppression General Xiao Kui, who was supposed to be thoroughly dead. A corpse rising from the grave. I looked at him, and he looked at me. In the next instant, a broken saber appeared in his hand from nowhere as he suddenly lunged at me. The blade whistled through the air, aiming straight for my throat. Too fast. Even gravely injured, this man's speed was terrifyingly swift. I instinctively leaned back. The lantern slipped from my hand and fell to the ground, extinguishing. In the darkness, I felt a thick aura of death rushing toward me. Immediately after, an icy hand like iron clamps seized my throat. He demanded, "Who sent you?" The man's voice was right by my ear, accompanied by heavy breathing. Each word was laced with shards of ice. My back slammed hard against the cold stone wall, all the air squeezed from my lungs. I struggled desperately to pry his hand away, but it didn't budge. With difficulty, I forced out the words, "I came to observe widowhood for you." The hand around my neck paused slightly as if surprised. He let out a cold laugh, his voice dripping with mockery. "Observe widowhood. The old emperor couldn't wait any longer and sent a woman down here to be buried with me." With his cold laugh, I felt the pressure on my neck ease slightly, but the broken saber remained pressed against the artery in my neck. By now, my eyes had adjusted to the darkness. A sliver of moonlight from the ventilation hole at the top of the tomb illuminated the space, allowing me to finally see his face clearly. It was an extremely pale face with resolute features chiseled like a blade, sword-like brows reaching his temples, and a high, straight nose. Yet at this moment, his face lacked any color, and his lips carried an eerie purplish hue. Has signs of poisoning, and a deadly one at that. "General Xiao." I struggled to keep my voice steady. "If I were an assassin here to kill you right now, I wouldn't have raised the lantern and shouted earlier. I would have simply thrown a handful of fire powder into your coffin." Xiao Kui narrowed his eyes, scrutinizing me. His gaze felt like a blade scraping across my face. His voice was hoarse as he said, "You're very smart, but also more dangerous." At that moment, his body suddenly swayed. The hand controlling me suddenly lost all strength. He let out a muffled groan as his entire body collapsed like a tree without support, the broken saber clanging to the ground. He fell toward me. I instinctively reached out to catch him, his heavy frame causing me to stagger. The two of us tumbled to the ground together. Unfortunately, my hand pressed directly onto his wound, right against the half-broken sword embedded in his chest. Xiaoqui trembled violently from the pain. The ferocious wolf from moments ago was now like a tiger with its teeth pulled, only able to emit low, pained growls. I pushed him away and quickly scrambled up, relighting the lantern. The flame revealed his current wretched state. He curled on the ground, forehead covered in cold sweat, black blood gushing from his chest wound. This is the sign of the heavenly mechanism poison activating. This poison not only prevented wounds from closing, but also caused the victim to endure bone, deep agony every watch of the clock. He was about to die. If I simply turned and left, closing the stone doors behind me, by morning this place would truly hold only one corpse. Then I would rightfully become the general's widow, claiming this vast mausoleum and the legendary treasures within to live freely. The temptation was truly immense. My hand tightened around the surgical knife. Xiaoqui on the ground seemed to sense my killing intent, or perhaps my indifference to his death. He laboriously opened his eyes to look at me, the corners of his mouth pulling into a mocking smile. Go ahead and strike. This is a good opportunity. I looked into those eyes. Even at this point, there was no plea within them. Only unyielding pride and arrogance. I remembered the day my mother passed away. She had looked at me the same way and said, "Ninger, one must live with dignity." If I killed him now or watched him die without saving him, what difference would there be between me and the Shen family, who sold their daughter for profit? Moreover, a living northern suppression general might be far more useful than a dead one. The Shen family could sell me once, and they could do it again. Madame Wang wanted to devour everything, and Shenqiao wanted to step on my head, relying on myself alone in this man-eating world to reclaim everything I was owed. With interest, would be too difficult. But what if I had a blade? The sharpest blade in the world. I took a deep breath, sheathed the surgical knife, and turned to fetch the chest full of medical texts and tools. Xiaoqui watched my actions, a flash of doubt in his eyes. What are you doing? I opened the chest, taking out a bundle of silver needles, a bottle of anesthetic powder, and a roll of 9-fold intestinal thread. Walking to his side, I looked down at him from above. Let's make a deal. General Xiao, I will save your life, and in return you will be my blade. Xiaoqui was stunned. Then, as if hearing the greatest joke in the world, he asked, "You want to save me? Do you know what poison I've been struck with? Even the old geezers in the Imperial Medical Institute are completely helpless." That's because they're idiots. I coldly cut him off, sitting down and ripping open the front of his robe. The flesh around the wound had turned pitch black and was rotting in the center, giving off a foul, nauseating stench. It's the heavenly mechanism poison mixed with Western region mandala, and this wound has also damaged the lung meridian. If we delay even half an hour more, not even a great Luo immortal could save you. As I spoke, my hands flew with practice speed, sealing several major acupoints around his heart meridian with silver needles. Xiaoqi's gaze changed, from the initial mockery to shock, and finally a glint of probing suspicion. Who exactly are you? The nominal Madame Shen Ning of yours, and your current creditor. I pulled out a small, razor-sharp knife and heated it over the fire. Endure it a bit. I need to cut away the rotten flesh first, then extract the arrowhead. There's no other anesthetic here, and this bottle of Mafei powder probably isn't strong enough. Xiaoqui stared at the glowing red knife, then suddenly laughed. Go ahead. If I so much as furrow my brow once, this lord won't be surnamed Xiao anymore. You're a tough nut. I won't waste another word, I replied. I lifted the skin with one hand and sliced away the necrotic tissue piece by piece. Fresh blood surged out, only to be instantly staunched by me. Xiaoqi's entire body went rigid, veins bulging across his forehead as cold sweat drenched his clothes in seconds. Yet he clenched his teeth, stubbornly refusing to utter even a single groan, until I gripped the broken sore fragment and yanked it out with all my strength. Splurt! A jet of black blood sprayed forth. Xiaoqui let out a muffled grunt and finally lost consciousness. The next hour was the longest of my life, cleaning the wound, suturing it, applying medicine, and bandaging it thoroughly. By the time I snipped the final thread, I felt like I'd been fished out of water, drenched in sweat. Watching Xiaoqi's breathing slowly stabilize, I warily slumped to the ground. This deal could be considered a success. By the time the sky began to lighten, Xiaoqi woke up. I'd already moved him to a cleaner corner, spreading several thick layers of the spare clothes I'd brought beneath him. The moment his eyes opened, his hand instinctively went to his chest. It was now wrapped in thick bandages. Though there was still a dull ache, the burning torment from the poison fire had vanished. He turned his head and saw me sitting atop the coffin lid, gnawing on a cold steamed bun. I swallowed the mouthful, brushed the crumbs from my hands and asked, "Awake now?" A shock flickered across his face. Xiaoke propped himself up and leaned against the stone wall. The way he looked at me now held none of the earlier contempt, only a complex swirl of emotions. "Tell me, what do you want?" "3 things." I raised 3 fingers. "First, everything in this Ling garden, including all the treasures in your underground palace. I want half the rights to control them." Xiaoque arched an eyebrow. I argued with firm logic. "You've seen it yourself. The Shen family threw me out. Without money, how am I supposed to buy medicine for you?" His answer came decisively and cleanly. "Second, until I have that capability, you must take responsibility for my safety, including but not limited to helping me deal with anyone who wants my life." "The Shen family?" he asked. I replied coldly, "The Shen family, Madame Wang, and every single person who wants to step on my head to climb higher." Xiaoqui regarded me, the corner of his mouth curving into an intrigued smile. "It seems the wife I married isn't some little white rabbit after all, but a fierce female yaksha. Thanks for the compliment." I didn't waver and continued straight to the third point. "Our relationship is strictly cooperative. To outsiders, you're dead and I'm a widow. I won't interfere with your grand revenge plans, and you won't meddle in my quest to get rich and prosperous. Once everything's settled, we'll each go our separate ways." Xiaoqui fell silent for a long time. The underground palace was deathly quiet, broken only by the occasional soft pop of sparks from the ever-burning lamps. After what felt like an eternity, he raised his head. His wolf-like eyes gleamed with pure appreciation. "Deal." With that, he pulled a glossy black command token from his waist and tossed it to me. "Take this, it's the key to the underground palace, and the credential to mobilize my shadow guards." I caught the token, feeling its cold, heavy weight in my palm. This was the true weight of power. I shook it lightly in my hand and, for the first time, gave him a genuine smile. "Pleasant cooperation, husband." To Xiaoqi's eyes though, that smile looked exactly like a fox who'd just stolen a chicken. "Oh, and one more thing." Xiaoqui pointed at his stomach. "I'm hungry." I glanced at this great benefactor who just surrendered his entire fortune, sighed, fished out half a cold steamed bun from my bosom, and tossed it over. "Eat sparingly. Even the landlord's family doesn't have endless grain stores." Xiaoqui caught it, spotted the obvious bite mark on one side and his mouth twitched. But in the end, he took a fierce bite. Outside the Ling garden, dawn was breaking through. A new day had begun. Everyone in the capital believed that from now on, I, Shen Ning, had fallen into the mud, never to rise again. Little did they know that from this very moment the chessboard had officially begun its game. The nights in the Ling garden were far colder than I'd imagined. This place was naturally yin, heavy, worsened by the endless autumn rains. That damp chill seemed to sprout eyes of its own, creeping into the bones along every crevice. Cough, thick, choking smoke suddenly flooded the side chamber. I covered my nose and mouth, eyes watering from the fumes, and had no choice but to push open the window for air. In the center of the room, the cracked charcoal basin was billowing thick black smoke, yet not a single spark glowed. "Damn it," I cursed softly, using iron tongs to poke the blackened pile. This charcoal looked glossy black outside but was soaked with moisture inside, the lowest, grade wet kind. Forget warming anything, it only produced toxic smoke. Ordinary people breathing it too long would fall ill for sure. "Is this the winter supplies that so-called kind stepmother of hers sent?" A voice, weak yet still icy cold, drifted from the inner room. I turned and saw Xiaoqui leaning against the doorframe, draped in one of my old cloaks. His face was still pale, but his eyes pierced through the haze with terrifying sharpness. "Why did you come out?" I frowned, set the tongs down, and moved to support him. "Your wound is still recovering, especially vulnerable to cold. This smoke harms the lungs too. Hurry back inside." Xiaoqui didn't move. He simply stared coldly at the smoking basin, the corner of his mouth twisting into a mocking smile. The Pingyang Marquis Manor really knows how to put on a grand show. His hoarse voice carried a surge of killing intent. The legitimate wife keeping vigil in the Ling garden can't even get a breath of warm air. If word spreads, is this the Shen family's famed family discipline? I replied indifferently. In the Shen family, the dead don't need charcoal, and the living might as well be dead. Though anger burns in my heart, helplessness burns hotter. Though I'd driven Nanny Zhao away, the little servant handling supplies was a slippery one. Today's charcoal had clearly been doused with water. Madame Wang was forcing me to bow my head. She wanted me so cold and desperate I'd have no choice but to kneel at the Ling garden gates and beg for her mercy. Or simply freeze to death here, exactly as she wished. I'm cold. Xiao Kui spoke up suddenly. I paused, then instinctively touched his hand. Sure enough, ice cold. He was a martial artist with strong fire ki, but the cold poison and massive blood loss had left this body barely better than Lin Deyu's. Let me throw this charcoal out. I'll seal the doors and windows tight and add 2 more quilts for you. I sighed and moved to deal with the troublesome basin. A large hand pressed down on my shoulder. No need. Xiaopui looked at me, a sharp hunter's light flashing in his eyes, the gaze of a predator spotting prey. If the Shen family won't give it, can't we just take it ourselves? I met his gaze. Take it from where? We're 20 li from the capital, and the Shen family's warehouses are heavily guarded. Xiaopui pulled out the black token from his bosom, spinning it deftly on his fingertip. Madam, have you forgotten who I am? Though he was still gravely wounded and couldn't use martial arts, the soldiers under his command were no vegetarians. My eyes lit up. You mean, licked his dry, cracked lips, as if savoring a fine delicacy. This year, the Shen family warehouse received a fresh batch of top-grade silver thread charcoal. It's said to be smokeless and dustless, burning with a faint pine fragrance. That was originally bestowed by the emperor to me, but the old Shen bastard kept it under the pretext of safekeeping. Tonight, we'll conveniently return it to its original owner. Watching him act like a bandit chief, I couldn't help laughing. Just the charcoal. De Xiaokui raised an eyebrow. Does madam have other instructions? I thought for a moment, then pulled a list from my sleeve and handed it to him. This is the dowry inventory from my mother's time. Besides the charcoal, there are several hundred caddies of winter cotton, 2 wolf pelt mattresses perfect for warding off the cold here, and a few old hens still laying eggs in the kitchen. I added seriously, right now you need proper nutrition. Eating dry rations forever will slow your recovery. Xiaokui scanned the densely written list, his mouth twitching. Then he burst into a low, resonant laugh. Good, very good, Shen Ning. He tucked the list into his bosom, snapped his fingers toward the dark void, and called, Ying-san. The words had barely faded when a ghostly black shadow dropped from the rafters, kneeling on one knee. Subordinate is here. I nearly jumped out of my skin. How long had this man been up there? Xiaokui pointed, and I pointed at the smoking basin. Did you hear what madam said? Follow the list and retrieve everything, make it clean. Don't let them think it's thieves, make them think they've encountered ghosts. Though Ying San's face remained expressionless, I clearly saw his eyes twitch. A top-tier shadow guard of the Northern Garrison Army, now reduced to stealing old hens and cotton. Subordinate obeys. Ying San took the list. His figure blurred, and he vanished into the night. That night, the Shen Manor was fated to have no peace. Early the next morning, I was jolted awake by frantic pounding on the door, more like someone trying to break it down. Eldest young miss. Eldest young miss. It's terrible. It was the same little servant from yesterday, face pale with horror, wailing outside like he was at a funeral. I threw on my robe and leisurely opened the door. The servant looked bloodless, as if he'd seen a ghost, trembling uncontrollably. What's got you so frightened? I yawned, pretending I'd just woken. Gee, ghosts. There are ghosts. The servant pointed shakily toward the Shen Manor. This morning madam woke up and found the warehouse completely empty. Everything's been cleaned out. I chuckled inwardly but feigned shock. Empty. Robbed by thieves. Not thieves. Definitely not thieves. The servant swallowed hard, fear deepening in his eyes. The locks are intact, not a scratch. Even the window seals are untouched. But the silver, thread charcoal, the cotton, the pelts inside, even the old hens in the kitchen coop, all gone. And moreover, his voice shook so badly it was almost inaudible. And moreover what? Moreover, there's a line of bloody writing on the warehouse wall. Trembling, he pulled out a crumpled paper. This lowly one copied it. Please look, young miss. I took the paper. Scrawled across it were crooked characters. The wife suffers too much from the cold. The Shen family deserves death. Borrowing items to ward off the chill. Repeat offenders will be pursued. Seamed with a fresh red handprint made from cinnabar mixed with chicken blood. Looking utterly horrifying. When madam saw this writing, she fainted on the spot. The servant sobbed. Master has invited a great master from Xiangguo Temple to perform rites. The master said it's General Xiao's heroic spirit manifesting. The general is punishing the Shen family for their cruel treatment. I barely held back my laughter, forcing an expression of shock and fear. I turned and offered a deep, sincere bow toward the depths of the Ling garden. Calling him general now. This bow full of genuine feeling made the servant's legs shake even harder. Hurry back and report to father and mother. Since it's the general's spirit watching, it means he's been staring right at the Shen family. I turned and gave precise instructions. From now on, when delivering supplies, be extra careful. If you bring wet charcoal or scorched rice again, next time the general won't raid the warehouse. He might come for heads instead. The servant was so terrified he collapsed, then scrambled away on all fours. How was that? My little performance passed muster. I closed the door and turned around. At some point, Xiaoqui had seated himself at the table. The room had completely transformed, the cracked basin gone, replaced by an exquisite purple, copper brazier burning smokeless silver, thread charcoal. The entire chamber was warm and filled with a faint, pleasant pine scent. On the table sat a freshly stewed old hen, its aroma mouth-watering. Ying San must have prepared it overnight. Xiaoqui tore off a drumstick and handed it to me. Eat something for now. By the way, did you add that bloody writing yourself? My handwriting isn't that ugly, is it? I took the drumstick and bit into the juicy meat. With my mouth full, I mumbled, "This is called artistic enhancement. If we don't scare Madame Wang half to death, how are we supposed to enjoy this silver, thread charcoal in peace?" Xiaoqui watched me eat with relish, the amusement in his eyes deepening. Shen Ning. I'm listening. You've learned to borrow a tiger's mite pretty quickly. I looked up, wiping grease from the corner of my mouth, and corrected him seriously. This isn't borrowing a tiger's might, it's using force to counter force. Also, this chicken soup is a bit bland. Tell Ying San to add more salt next time. From the rafters came the sound of Ying San nearly slipping. With several hundred caddies of silver, thread charcoal and a mountain of supplies, the days in the Ling garden suddenly became downright luxurious. Madame Wang had clearly been scared witless. For several days straight, she didn't dare send anyone to make trouble. Instead, she dispatched 2 carts of top-grade rice, flour, oil, and salt under the elegant pretext of tributing to the general. I accepted it all without a shred of politeness. Under my care, Xiaoqi's wounds healed at an astonishing speed. His constitution was ridiculously robust. An ordinary person with such injuries wouldn't leave bed for half a year, yet he was already walking around after just a few days. The only problem was he couldn't sit still. Shen Ning. I'm about to start growing mushrooms from boredom. In the underground palace, Xiaoqui lay sprawled on the coffin lid, idly tossing a gold coin. I sat at the stone table grinding herbs and didn't even look up. Growing mushrooms is good. We can add them to dinner tonight. This damp, gloomy place is perfect for them to thrive. And Xiaoqi sighed, rolled over, and sat up. The gold coins spun nimbly between his fingers. Stuck in this tomb all day facing dead things. Don't you get bored? Not at all. I poured the finished powder into a porcelain bottle. It's quieter here than the Shen Manor, and no one plots against me. I can focus entirely on studying medicine. Not even an immortal could tempt me away. A Xiaoqui curled his lip, clearly displeased with my monk-like calm. He jumped down from the coffin and came over to watch the pearls I was grinding. What is this? Pearl powder to calm the nerves and stabilize the mind. He looked disdainfully at the tiny, fingernail-sized pearls. Pearls of this quality, and you have the face to use them. The Shen family is truly stingy. I wasn't pleased. These are what I scraped from my dowry. The grade may be average, but the medicinal effect is solid. If you have better ones, feel free to contribute. The Xiaoqui snorted and walked to the tomb wall. He pressed a few spots on a certain brick, and with a click, the entire wall rotated open. In that instant, a dazzling burst of jewel light nearly blinded me. Behind the wall was a massive secret compartment filled with chests. Lids open, they overflowed with gold, silver, pearls, jade, emeralds, precious stones, and countless rare treasures I couldn't even name. At the very center sat a night, luminescent pearl the size of a fist, radiating soft yet brilliant light that illuminated the entire chamber like daytime. The pestle in my hand clattered to the floor. I asked in a trembling voice, "These all belong to you?" The Xiaoqui leaned against the wall with crossed arms, his expression saying, "You've never seen the world. This is merely a small portion. Over the years at the border, I raided plenty of corrupt officials and enemy generals. The Emperor's public rewards are the surface stuff. These are my private reserves." Casually, he picked up the massive night luminescent pearl and tossed it to me like a pebble. Catch. I fumbled to catch it, terrified of damaging the priceless treasure. This must be worth 1,000 gold taels, right? I hugged the heavy pearl in my arms. He shrugged lightly. Sell it on the black market and it'd fetch at least 5,000 taels of gold. If those other pearls are too low, grade for you. Grind this one into powder instead. I stared at the night luminescent pearl, then at Xiao Kli's extravagant attitude, and took a deep breath. Xiao Kli, are you sick in the head? He raised an eyebrow. Not enough. Then he reached for another handful of gemstones. I glared at him and scolded. This is a night luminescent pearl. While similar in composition to pearls, it's fluorescent stone. Grind it into powder and eat it. You'll die. How terrifyingly uncultured can one be? Xiao Kui froze, then awkwardly rubbed his nose. I'm not a doctor, how would I know? I carefully returned the pearl to its chest, then carefully selected from the hoard. This jade pillow isn't bad. I'll make it into a cooling jade pillow for you to suppress the remaining poison. This 100-year ginseng root, I'll slice for you to steep in water. And this dagger that cuts iron like mud, I'll keep it for self-defense. Muttering to myself, I shamelessly transferred the items into my own chest. Xiao Kui didn't stop me. Instead, he watched with great interest, like a man observing a diligent little hamster stalking its nest. Shen Ning, what are you doing? I was examining a golden censer, wondering if I could melt it down to cast more silver needles. He gestured at the entire wall of treasures. Is this the limit of your ambitions? Just say the word and everything here can be yours. I paused and turned to face him. Though dressed in coarse cloth, standing before this mountain of gold and sea of silver, he radiated an aura of absolute dominance. I do not accept unearned rewards. I set the censer down and dusted my hands. Ours is a cooperative relationship. You provide the funds, I provide the effort. I'll take the compensation I deserve, but I won't touch a single coin I shouldn't. Xiao Kli's eyes flickered with an unusual glint. The Shen family's decision to drive you out was truly the stupidest mistake of their lives. I think so too. I smiled and returned to the stone table. Enough showing off your wealth. Bring me that ginseng root. I'll cook congee for you. A Xiao Qi obediently handed it over and watched as I sliced the priceless root into thin pieces and tossed them into the bubbling sweet potato congee. He shook his head. Such a waste of heavenly resources. I covered the pot. This is called making the best use of things. Tonight's ginseng sweet potato congee will replenish qi and nourish blood, perfect for your recovery. That night, in the tomb chamber filled with the aroma of herbs and sweet potato, we enjoyed the most expensive congee in the mortal world. Xiao Kui took a sip and frowned. Too sweet. I don't like sweet or overly salty flavors. Then immediately, give me another bowl. Once we were full and satisfied, Xiao Kui leaned back in his chair, gazing at the ever-burning lamp above, and suddenly said, once my injuries heal completely, I'll take you away from here. With all of this, my hands, busy clearing the bowls, paused. We're to a place where the Shen family can never find us, and even the emperor has no reach. He turned to me, his gaze deadly serious. Shen Ning, you are a person of great talent. You shouldn't be trapped in this desolate place for the rest of your life, guarding a dead man's tablet. My heart stirred. This was the first time someone had told me I didn't deserve to be caged here. I smiled radiantly at him. Very well, then I'll wait for General Shao to lead me soaring to greater heights. But first, I pointed at the dirty bowls. Since you've eaten my congee, go wash the dishes. Klee stared at me in disbelief, pointing to himself. Me, wash dishes. I am the great general of the northern garrison. I mercilessly tossed the cleaning rag at his face. Here, you're nothing but a freeloading patient. Hurry up. If they're not clean, there'll be no food tomorrow. Watching the formidable northern garrison general squat awkwardly in the corner with a dark expression, clumsily scrubbing dishes, I couldn't help bursting into laughter. These days didn't feel difficult at all. The peaceful days didn't last long before trouble came knocking. Early that morning, a grand procession of riders and carriages arrived energetically at the Ling Garden gates. The leader was none other than my younger sister, Shenqiao, who had married into the Duan prince's manor just days ago. Sister, are you there? Shenqiao's voice rang out from outside the gates, dripping with undisguised triumph and flaunting. I was in the middle of changing Xiao Kli's bandages. Hearing her voice, my hands didn't pause for even a second. He glanced toward the entrance and said coldly, your dear little sister has arrived. Judging by this spectacle, she's here to make trouble for you. She's here to flaunt her presence, I replied. She's only been in the prince's manor a few days and is riding high on success. If she doesn't show off in front of her pitiful older sister, How could she swallow her resentment? Do you need me to have Ying-san throw them out? I finished packing the medicine and straightened my clothes. No need. I happen to want to see how she's been faring in the prince's manor these past days, and collect some interest while I'm at it. I stepped out of the side chamber and walked toward the mausoleum gates. Shenqiao sat in a lavish carriage, lifting the curtain to reveal her exquisitely painted face. She wore a brilliant red brocade gown embroidered with cloud patterns, her head adorned with a dazzling array of gold and jade hairpins. She looked as vibrant and proud as a peacock on parade. Seeing me emerge in coarse clothing, the superiority in Shenqiao's eyes practically overflowed. She opened her mouth in a coquettish tone. Though the words sounded concerned, the gloating was unmistakable to anyone with ears. "Oh dear sister, how have you become so haggard in just a few days? Look at that sallow complexion of yours. It's only natural, I suppose, staying in such a gloomy, ominous place. Even if you weren't ill before, you'd be frightened into sickness." I regarded her indifferently. Little sister isn't enjoying her blessings in the prince's manor. What brings you to this inauspicious place? Shenqiao sneered. Supported by her maids, she descended from the carriage. Today is my return visit to my natal home. Thinking of how lonely sister must be all by herself, I made a special detour to visit. By the way, she waved her hand, and the maids behind her presented several exquisite food boxes. I brought some pastries from the prince's manor for my sister. These were prepared by the Imperial chefs. My sister probably hasn't seen such delicacies before, right? The boxes were exquisitely crafted and emanated an enticing aroma. Thank you for your kind intentions, little sister. I didn't spare them a single glance. However, I've grown accustomed to plain rice and simple vegetables here. I'm not used to such luxurious fare. You should take them back and enjoy them yourself. Shenqiao's face froze, clearly not expecting such disrespect. She raised her voice. What kind of talk is that, sister? Are you jealous that I married well and can't find joy in your heart? Shenqiao took 2 steps closer, deliberately raising her wrist to display a small, vivid green jade bracelet. Oh my, this bracelet feels a bit loose. His Highness specially had it sourced from the southern borders. It's priceless imperial green jade. His Highness said only jade of this caliber is worthy of my skin. She waved the bracelet before my eyes. The jade quality was indeed exceptional. One look told you it was no ordinary piece. I stared at the bracelet for a moment, then suddenly smiled. Little sister, this bracelet is truly a fine item. Shenqiao lifted her chin proudly. Of course it is. However, I adjusted my tone and took a single step closer, lowering my voice to a conspiratorial whisper. This jade bracelet may have flawless luster, but a sinister aura is seeping from within it. Shenqiao froze, then snapped. What nonsense are you spouting? I said I am a great physician. My skills of observation, listening, questioning, and pulse diagnosis are still intact. Allow me to point inside the bracelet. Look carefully, sister. On the inner wall, isn't there an extremely fine red thread? There was no natural cloud pattern in the jade. It was cinnabar that had seeped in. Cinnabar soaked in contraceptive medicine. Shenqiao's face drained of color in an instant. Instinctively she tried to snatch her hand back, but I clamped her wrist in an iron grip. I met her eyes and continued calmly. Such tricks are hardly rare in the palace. Yet if you wear this bracelet long term, the cold Q will invade your body. In mild cases your menses will grow irregularly. In severe ones you will never bear a child again in this lifetime. It seems the waters in Prince Dawn's mansion run far deeper than you imagined. Sister. You're lying. You're just jealous of me. Shenqiao shrieked, flinging my hand away. Her mouth hurled curses, yet that same hand trembled uncontrollably. She stared at the bracelet on her wrist as though it were a live viper. I shrugged and retreated a step. Believe or disbelieve, it's your body. But allow me one kind reminder, if you truly wish for children, you'd best smash this bracelet right now. Shenqiao bit her lip until it bled. The smug triumph in her eyes had vanished completely, replaced by raw horror and gnawing doubt. She whirled around and roared at the maid still standing there dumbfounded. What are you gawking at? Back to the mansion. Back to the prince's residence. She didn't even spare the breath to mock me again. In a fluster she scrambled into the carriage, forgetting every single food box on the table. Watching the carriage flee as though chased by wolves, the smile at the corner of my lips curved deeper. The bracelet did have a flaw, but not from contraceptive cinnabar. The jade itself simply carried minor imperfections. I had merely frightened her. Yet for a suspicious woman like Shenqiao, that single seed of doubt was enough to make her toss and turn through endless sleepless nights in the prince's mansion. Perfect. Behind me came the sound of slow clapping. Xiao Kui leaned against the doorframe, peer in hand, taking lazy bites. I never expected Madame's medical skills to be so superb, nor her talent for psychological warfare to be quite so masterful. You flatter me. I turned and walked inside. It's only dealing with a fool spoiled rotten by the court. If I can't even handle her, how could I possibly help you face those old foxes later? He followed, crunching another bite of pear. Those words were meant to scare her, but you weren't lying entirely, were you? I nodded. The bracelet isn't poisonous, but it does carry faint yin energy, likely an object taken from a burial. Prince Duan gifting something like this to his new principal consort, it seems he holds little genuine affection for this marriage. Shu Xiaokli shook his head and clicked his tongue. The grudges of noble houses. This Ling garden remains the purest place of all. Right then, a thunderous boom erupted from the distance, followed by the terrified whinnying of horses and a woman's blood-curdling scream. Help! The voice came unmistakably from the direction Shen Qiao's carriage had vanished. I halted, glancing at Xiao Kui in puzzlement. He shrugged, utterly innocent. Don't look at me. This time it truly wasn't my doing. Must be karma. I narrowed my eyes and caught sight of Ying San on the roof beam, quietly tucking away the stone he had just flicked. Very well. This, too, counted as karma. Shenqiao's carriage wheel had snapped without warning. The entire vehicle, and its occupant, flipped straight into the roadside ditch. She suffered no serious wounds, yet the once unrivaled Prince Duan's consort now sat drenched in filthy water, hairpins scattered, hair a tangled mess, looking every bit like a drowned chicken. And the priceless jade bracelet on her wrist shattered into several pieces in the fall. Word spread that Shenhao was carried back to the Shen residence in tears, wailing that the Ling Garden's feng shui clashed with her fate. I stood on the high terrace, watching the miserable procession disappear, my heart as cold as winter frost. Shenqiao, this is only the beginning. Everything you owe me, everything the Shen family owes me. I will reclaim it all, principal and interest, down to the last copper. The news of Shenqiao breaking her leg on the way back to her maternal home from Ling Garden swept through the capital like wildfire. The rumors among the common folk grew wilder by the hour. Some claimed she had offended General Xiao's spirit. Others insisted the Ling Garden's feng shui was cursed to devour Shen women. Madame Wang smashed several priceless vases in a rage, yet could do nothing. After all, Shenqiao was her own flesh and blood. Not only had she gained no advantage, the entire family now carried the stench of disrespecting ancestors. Her dream of becoming Prince Dawn's favored consort cooled by more than half before it had even begun to burn. Worse, however, was still to come. A few days later, Shenqiao developed a high fever that refused to break. Imperial physicians were summoned. She drank basin after basin of medicine to no avail. Day and night she suffered nightmares. A black, armored general wielding a broken blade chased her relentlessly. Each time she woke she screamed until her voice cracked, eventually babbling that a ghost lived inside the shattered jade bracelet. Prince Duan held no true affection for her, but she was still his newly principal consort. Should she truly go mad, his own face would be ruined. Thus the hot potato was tossed back to the Shen family. Madame Wang had no choice but to swallow her pride and send someone to invite me back. This time it was not the vicious nanny Zhao, but the Shen residence's chief steward, Shen Fu. Eldest young miss, Madam requests your presence at the residence. Shen Fu stood before the Ling Garden gates. His tone was respectful, yet anxiety flickered deep in his eyes. Second young miss is gravely ill. Even the Imperial physicians are helpless. We heard eldest young miss inherited the late Madam's true medical legacy, so I was sent to beg your assistance. I sat in the courtyard basking in the sun, medical text in hand. I didn't even raise my head. Steward Shen, you jest. I am merely a widow keeping vigil. What medical skill could I possibly possess? I turned a page. If even the Imperial physicians are powerless, what could I do? Besides, if I leave, who will guard the general's tomb? Should the general hold me accountable? I deliberately drag out the words, pointing toward the gloomy tomb chamber behind me. Shen Fu shuddered. Lately Ling Garden had grown eerily haunted. The bloody writing from that night still cast shadows in his heart. Gritting his teeth, he played Madame Wang's final card. Madame said that if eldest young miss can cure second young miss, the matter of the withheld dowry can be reopened for discussion. I closed the book at last and looked up. The Dari. I regarded him with a half-smile. Steward Shen, do you still take me for a 3-year-old child? That is something I intend to reclaim. No one needs to bestow it upon me. Shen Fu's expression shifted. Eldest young miss, you refuse. I rose, dusting my skirt. It is not refusal, it is that I dare not. Shenqiao's ailment is a heart disease, and only heart medicine can cure a heart disease. She has done things against her conscience and now fears ghosts at the door. If I cure her, I defy heaven's will. If I fail, Madame Wang will accuse me of deliberate harm. Why should I undertake a task that brings no benefit? You mean, you want me to return? Very well. I raised 3 fingers. First, Madame Wang must come personally to invite me. Second, Shenqiao must be carried here. Third, and most important, I stared straight into Shen Fu's eyes, enunciating each word. Shenqiao must kowtow 999 times before the general's tomb to apologize. If she is sincere, the illness will naturally resolve. Shen Fu's eyes bulged. Eldest young miss, second young miss is Prince Duan's consort. How can she be forced to kowtow and apologize? Just let her remain ill. I sat back down and picked up the medical text. Whether she goes mad or crazy is Prince Duan's concern. What does it have to do with this widow sister of hers? Seeing that soft words and hard threats alike failed, Shen Fu could only leave with a face like ash. Returning to the tomb chamber, Xiaoqi was polishing the broken blade he always kept at his side. Hearing about the 999 kowtows, he lifted his head and gave me a smile. You truly intend to kowtow her to death? She brought it upon herself. I replied. Her illness is not caused by evil spirits. It is merely extreme fright coupled with a guilty conscience leading to hysteria. A few kowtows will make her sweat and vent her fear. Half the illness will be cured. I am simply using poison to combat poison in the orthodox manner. A Xiaoqi shook his head. A woman's heart is the most vicious, but well played. With that he drew a jade pendant from his robe and handed it to me. What is this? Ling San retrieved it from Prince Duan's mansion, he said casually. Even while raving mad, Shenqiao kept it pressed close to her body. Does it look familiar? I took the pendant. One glance and my fingers clenched so tightly the knuckles turned white. It was a longevity lock carved from the purest mutton fat jade, a tiny name engraved upon it. This was the keepsake my mother had left me. When she passed, the pendant vanished without a trace. I had always believed it was lost. I never imagined Shenqiao had stolen it. So it was her. I drew a deep breath, forcing down the fury in my chest. She stole from me, then dared wear it while waving a knife in my face. The Shen family truly was rotten from the roots. Therefore Xiao Kui rose and came to my side. This time we will not only make her kowtow, we will force her to vomit out everything she has swallowed, principle and interest. 3 days later, Shenqiao truly arrived. Although Madame Wang did not come personally, she sent several trusted senior maids carrying a soft sedan in grand procession to Ling Garden. At this point Shenqiao bore no trace of a consort's bearing. Her hair was disabled, her face deathly pale, and she muttered endlessly, "Don't kill me, there's a ghost." Koto. I ordered coldly, standing before the tombstone as I watched her being forced to her knees on the ground. The senior maid still tried to plead. I twirled several silver needles between my fingers. What? You no longer wish to be cured? Then carry her back. Left with no choice, the maids pressed Shenqiao's head down onto the cold green stone slab. Thud. Thud. At first she struggled wildly, but soon the bone, deep pain from her forehead seemed to clear her mind. That excruciating agony finally broke her. She burst into genuine heart-wrenching sobs. No longer feigned tears, but raw, miserable wailing. Sister, I was wrong. Sister, save me. I don't want to die. Shenqiao kowtowed and screamed, blood streaming down her cheeks. A picture of utter wretchedness. I watched without expression until the 99th kowtow. She had fainted twice and been revived each time with cold water. When she came to, I finally spoke. Carry her into the side hall. I will perform acupuncture. The maids, as if granted amnesty, hurriedly bore her inside in a fluster. The acupuncture was swift. I inserted needles into several calming acupoints, then fed her a pre-prepared calming decoction. Of course, the bowl contained enough bitter coptis root that even in her coma Shenqiao's brows furrowed tightly. Half an hour later she awakened. Though still weak, the madness had left her. She opened her eyes, saw me sitting beside her wiping the needles, and shrank fearfully beneath the blanket. You're awake. I put the needles away. It seems the general has forgiven you. Shenqiao bit her lip, too terrified to speak. This time she was truly frightened. Since you're awake, return this to me. I extended my hand. In my palm lay the longevity lock. Shenqiao's face changed color. She instinctively touched her chest and found it empty. Stammering, "Thach, that's mine. I gave a cold laugh. "This is my mother's relic. My name is engraved upon it. Shenqiao, you have made stealing a habit. Do you truly believe no one in this world can deal with you?" Shenqiao curled into herself, daring not to utter another word. "Get out." I tucked the pendant away. "Go back and tell Madame Wang this is only the beginning. Everything I have lost, I will reclaim one by one." Shenqiao was carried away like a defeated fighting cock, watching their wretched backs disappear. I knew the Shen family and I had completely torn away all pretense of civility. After Shenqiao returned, she suffered another serious bout of illness, yet afterward remained stable for half a month. During those peaceful days in Ling Garden, late autumn arrived and the mountain leaves blazed crimson. Xiaoqui and I cleared a small plot behind the tomb chamber to plant vegetables. Though the place was yin and cold, the soil proved surprisingly rich and loose. We planted cold hardy turnips and cabbages, even built a simple chicken coop and raised a few old hens we had borrowed from the Shen family. Who could have guessed that the great Junbei general and the eldest daughter of a marquis's house would live days of men plowing and women weaving inside this Ling garden? "Is this the idyllic countryside life you spoke of?" Xiaoqui asked, sleeves rolled up, hoe in hand as he worked the turnip beds. His black brocade robe was smeared with mud, a streak of dirt across his cheek, making him look both comical and strangely endearing. I sat nearby feeding a hen that had just laid an egg. Hearing him, I smiled. "Why is General Xiao dissatisfied?" "Not exactly," he replied. "It simply feels novel. On the battlefield at only of killing enemies and surviving. I never imagined a day when I could plant crops in peace like this." He gazed at the lush green seedlings, his eyes softening with rare tenderness. I studied his profile, my heart stirring faintly. This man might appear cold and fierce, yet deep inside he craved tranquility. Had he not been born into chaotic times, had he not carried a sea of blood vengeance, perhaps he truly would have made an excellent old farmer. "Xiao Quam. When all this is finished, where do you wish to go?" He paused, turning to look at me. "Jiangnan." After a moment's thought he added, "They say it is spring all year round, free of war and endless schemes. We could buy a large estate and plant it full of peach blossoms." He hesitated, eyes suddenly burning. Then you won't need to guard that cold memorial tablet anymore." I felt oddly self-conscious under his gaze and lowered my head to continue feeding the chicken. "Who said I would go with you? I have hands and feet, and I know medicine. I can live well anywhere." Xiaoqui chuckled, saying nothing more, yet the hoe in his hand struck the soil with noticeably greater force. That evening we stewed a pot of pork rib soup with freshly dug turnips. The ribs had been brought by Ying-san. The all-capable shadow guard had now fully degenerated into our personal shopper, responsible for gathering intelligence and, just as diligently, buying vegetables and cooking. "This turnip is truly sweet." Xiaoqui sipped the broth, praising without end. "Even better than the Imperial kitchens." I proudly picked up a rib. "Of course. Don't you see who planted them?" Just as we were enjoying the meal, Ying-san dropped from the beam. "Master, madam, there is movement from the Shen family." Xiaoqui and I exchanged a glance and set down our bowls. He wiped his mouth, cold ruthlessness returning to his face. "Speak." "Today the Shen clan elders are gathered at the Q Marquis' residence discussing succession." "Succession for whom?" I frowned. Ying-san hesitated briefly. "A 5-year-old nephew from the second branch, Shen Ming. Clever and quick-witted, they say. They claim that although Madame has the merit of remaining chaste, she is childless. They fear the general's incense will be cut off, so they wish to adopt a son for you to inherit the general's title and family fortune." Ha! I slammed my chopsticks onto the table. What a perfect excuse. Incense cut off, inheriting the family fortune. So that's their game. After losing the round with Shenqiao's illness, Madame Wang and Shenqiao know open confrontation will fail, so they resort to this sinister ploy. This what they called eating the inheritance. In this era, a childless woman committed the greatest sin. Without descendants she would not even qualify to enter the ancestral tome after death. They were seizing exactly that point, using an adopted heir to control me, and thereby the entire general's estate. Once Shen Ming was adopted, I would become a nominal mother, yet in truth nothing more than a puppet. When the boy grew up, this bloodless foster mother would likely be eliminated on some pretext. I had heard enough of the Shen family's nature even while living in Ling Garden. Xiaokui gave a cold laugh, murderous intent flashing in his eyes. They wished to take my title and assets to raise their own spawn. They didn't even ask if the rightful owner consented. I rose and walked to the window, gazing into the pitch black night. They believe the rightful owner is thoroughly dead, so they dare act without restraint. Then let them discover whether the rightful owner is truly dead. Xiaokui stepped behind me, voice lowering. Tomorrow they will surely bring the clan genealogy and documents to force your signature. I turned to face him. At that moment he was no longer the turnip, hoeing farmer, but the Asura returned from hell. Then we shall give them a grand surprise. So, has your wound fully healed? He flexed his wrist, producing crisp cracking sounds. Healed long ago. I was just lacking a chance to stretch my muscles and bones. I curled my lips into a smile. Excellent. Tomorrow we will close the doors and release the general. Early the next morning, Ling Garden was completely surrounded. This time not only Madame Wang came, but also uncles, aunts, cousins, every branch of the Shen clan. Even several venerable clan elders of high prestige had been invited. The spectacle was grander than Shenqiao's wedding day. Eldest young miss, all the clan elders have arrived. Please come out to speak. Nanny Zhao had returned, now strutting arrogantly before the gate, delivering the message. With clan elders backing her, it seemed her courage had swelled once more. I changed into plain morning white, hair pinned simply with a wooden hairpin. Dignified yet faintly desolate. Stepping out of the side room, I found the open space before the main hall filled with seats. White, bearded elders sat in the center. Madame Wang stood beside them, face full of virtuous gentleness as she poured tea. Next to her stood a little boy with a tiger-like head, curiously peeking around. Undoubtedly the intended heir Shen Ming. Seeing me, Madame Wang instantly switched on a loving, mother smile. Come greet the clan elders. Today everyone is here for the great joyous occasion between you and the general. Joyous occasion. I looked at her coldly. I was unaware that keeping vigil could produce joyous occasions. Madame Wang's smile stiffened, then recovered. Look at this child. What kind of talk is that? Though the general is gone, the incense cannot be severed. The clan elders have discussed and decided to adopt Binger's son from the second branch as your son. In the future you will have support, and the general beneath the yellow springs can rest in peace. Support. I glanced at the boy picking his nose. Rely on him. The great clan elder in the center coughed and tapped his cane. Shenshi, do not be rude. This is the clan's decision, made for your benefit. A lone woman guarding such a vast estate, without a man behind you, who will care for your old age and see you off. Though Minger is young, he is clever and obedient. Teach him well, and when he inherits the title he will naturally be filial. Filial. I couldn't help laughing aloud. Great clan elder, your words sound so pleasant. The child is only 5, at the age when he still remembers his real parents. On what grounds is he being adopted by me? Moreover, even if adopted, his heart will always belong to his second branch parents. When he obtains the title, the first person he will want to drive out will be this bloodless foster mother. Me. The great clan elder, heart struck by my words, darkened. Nonsense. This is clan rule. Once entered into the genealogy, he is your biological son. The matter is settled. I withdrew my smile, sharp gaze sweeping the entire gathering. Refuse? Madame Wang shrieked. Shen Ning, do not be ungrateful. This is the Shen family giving you face. Who do you think you are? Nothing but a widow. Without the Shen family's protection you would have been devoured to the bones long ago. Besides, a woman's knowledge is short. This matter is not yours to decide. Hurry and sign your name and thumbprint. Do not miss the auspicious hour. The surrounding relatives chimed in, faces savage as vultures circling a corpse. Little Shen Ming, frightened by the scene, burst into tears. I want my mother. I want candy. I don't want to be the son of this ugly woman. That wail shattered the last veneer of false kindness. Madame Wang hurriedly covered his mouth, glaring at him in embarrassment. I shrugged helplessly. See, even the child is unwilling. Green melons are never sweet. Clan elders, you had the best return. Wine offered politely is refused. Now you wish to drink the punishment wine. The great clan elder slammed the table in fury. Men, bring the document and force her thumbprint. As soon as the order fell, several burly servants rushed forward to seize me. I stood motionless, watching them calmly. The The corner of my mouth curved into an eerie smile. Are you certain you wish to force me? What if we do? Madame Wang laughed coldly. Today you will sign whether you wish to or not. Very well. I raised my hand in a crushing gesture. The instant the servant's fingers brushed my shoulders. Boom! A deafening explosion erupted from the underground chamber entrance behind us. The two heavy white stone doors slowly swung open. An icy gale howled forth, so fierce no one could keep their eyes open. Tables overturned, teacups shattered. The servants were flung to the ground. What is happening? Madame Wang's face turned deathly white as she clutched the great clan elder's sleeve. The elder's beard trembled. Earthquake, or... Before they could react, a deep, hoarse voice like it rose from the depths of hell echoed through Ling Garden. Who dares touch Ninger? The voice was not loud, yet it carried soul-shaking pressure. Everyone froze. From the dark depths of the underground chamber, a tall figure slowly emerged. He wore pitch-black battle armor, somewhat tattered, yet unmistakably the standard of the Zhenbai general. A ferocious Ashura mask covered his face, revealing only eyes sharp as cold starlight. In his hand he dragged a broken great blade. The edge scraped across the green stone, sending sparks flying with an ear-piercing screech. Ghost! It's a ghost! Someone screamed. The crowd erupted. The once arrogant clan elders now had faces drained of blood. Some dove under tables, others wet themselves. Little Shen Ming fainted on the spot. Madame Wang's legs gave out. She collapsed to the ground, pointing at the figure with chattering teeth. Xiao, General Xiao. The figure walked to my side and stopped. A hand naturally rested on my shoulder. The icy touch made even me shiver. It was, after all, only an act. He lowered his head, regarding Madame Wang through the mask, voice bone, chillingly cold. I heard you wish to force this general to accept an adopted son. He lifted the broken blade and slashed down at the table before him. With a sharp crack the sturdy wood split cleanly in two. This general is not yet dead, yet you are already eager to divide the estate. The entire scene fell deathly silent, only the howling wind and heavy breathing remained. I stood beside Xiao Kui, watching these relatives reveal their ugly faces, my heart filled with boundless delight. This was the support you wanted. This was the divine manifestation you prayed for. What's wrong? The real dragon has arrived, yet you are all terrified. Husband, I spoke at the perfect moment, voice soft as spring water. They say I am childless and wish to drive me from the clan genealogy. Killing intent around Xiao Kui thickened. He turned and fixed the trembling great clan elder with a stare. Oh, is that so? He advanced step by step, each footfall treading on everyone's hearts. If that is the case, tonight this general shall visit your esteemed residences to discuss this genealogy thoroughly. And, no need, no need. The great clan elder waved his hands frantically. Misunderstanding. All a misunderstanding. General, calm your anger. Calm my anger. Scram, the Xiaokui's roar shook the clouds. In that instant everyone received amnesty. They scrambled, rolled, and crawled out the gates, not daring to pick up fallen shoes, trampling one another, cursing their parents for giving them only 2 legs. In the blink of an eye the once bustling Ling Garden was empty, leaving only chaos and the fainted child. Xiao Kui removed his mask, revealing a teasing smile. How was the performance? Acceptable. I looked at him and burst into laughter, raising a thumbs up. Oscar, worthy. This round was a beautiful victory. That day the Shen clan elders were scared witless and fled Ling Garden. Yet if they believed the matter ended there, they sorely underestimated this king of hell's memory. That night Xiao Kui did not truly take his blade to the Shen residence. After all, his current identity was that of a dead man. Open appearance would complicate cleanup, but he possessed 1,000 ways to ensure sleepless nights. Xiao Kui sat atop the coffin lid, holding my dowry inventory, clicking his tongue in amazement. The Shen family swallowed quite a fortune. Just the fertile fields and shops alone number 20, plus this red coral statue, gold-threaded furniture. Ninger, this dowry of yours could support half the Zhenbai army. I stood beside him sorting medicines and laughed coldly. Of course. My mother was the sole daughter of a wealthy Jiangnan merchant. The 10-li red dowry procession back then shook the entire capital. Without it, how could a declining house like the Shens have secured the marriage? Since that is so. Xiao Kui passed the list to Ying San. Copy this 100 times and paste them across the Shen residence's main gate, rear courtyard, and even the bedheads of those clan elders tonight. Ying San accepted the list expressionlessly. Master, only the list. Of course not. Xiao Kui's lips curved into a wicked smile. Catch some crows from the graveyard, pluck them bare, smear them with blood, and hang them from their beams. Leave a message. He paused, voice turning glacial. Blood debts paid in blood. Goods returned to their rightful owner. Within 3 days, if the original items are not returned, this general will personally come for your heads. Understood. That night, ghostly wails and wolf howls echoed without ceasing inside the Shen residence and the elders' mansions. It was said the great clan elder woke to find a blood-soaked dead crow beside his pillow, and a king of hell's note listing every debt. He fainted on the spot and required 3 Imperial physicians to revive him by pinching his philtrum. The next morning the Shen residence's main gate remained tightly shut. Even the vegetable-buying maids dared not venture out. Street rumors grew fiercer. The Shen family had committed wicked deeds and enraged General Xiao's spirit. Now the ghost general had come to claim lives. I sat in Ling Garden listening to Yingxian's report, and the mood was exceptionally pleasant. Killing the chicken to warn the monkey. Used perfectly. I poured Xiao Kui a cup of tea. Aren't you afraid of scaring them to death, so no one pays? He accepted the cup, blowing away the foam. Rest assured. These people value their lives above all. To save their skins they would pawn even their underwear. As expected, on the final day of the deadline the Shen residence's main gate opened at last. A procession of carriages rumbled forward, heavy carts trailing behind like a funeral cortege. This time there was no arrogant Shenqiao, no pretentious elders, only Madame Wang, face ashen and 10 years older, leading several trembling stewards. They beat gongs and drums along the way, claiming they came to offer tribute to the general. Offer tribute? I stood at the Ling Garden gates, gazing at the mountain of carts, and gave a cold laugh. This tribute arrives at precisely the right moment. Had it been half an hour later, I fear it would have turned into resentment. Hearing my voice, Madame Wang's body jerked violently. She looked up, eyes filled with venom yet deep fear. Gritting her teeth, she rasped, "Shen Ning, everything has been delivered." Her voice was hoarse. "Not a single item is missing. Can you ask the general to stop now?" I ignored her, merely signaling Yingxian. "Open the carts and inspect." Yingxian and several shadow guards, disguised as vigil keepers, pried the carts open roughly. Jewels and treasures instantly dazzled every eye. Gold, silver, jewelry, antiques, paintings, silks, satins, all once my mother's, seized by the Shen family for 10 full years, finally saw daylight again. I stepped forward, casually picking up a golden hairpin. Why is this hairpin missing a gemstone? I frowned at Madame Wang. My mother loved this phoenix hairpin most. Now it has become a plucked chicken. Is this what you mean by not a single item missing? Madame Wang's face turned white. She hurriedly explained. That was Jiao's carelessness. Carelessness. I tossed the hairpin back into the cart with a crisp ring. Then compensate in cash. This ruby is top grade. Market price 500 taels. Bring the money. Madame Wang was livid. Shen Ning, do not push people too far. Push too far. I spun, eyes like daggers. You seized my mother's dowry, ate and drank from it for 10 years, even tried to sell me to a dead man for vigil keeping. Now you devour my inheritance, and I merely take back what is mine. Yet this is pushing too far. I pointed to the gloomy underground chamber entrance. My mother has a spirit. The general's soul has not dispersed. Madame Wang, would you like me to invite the general out to reason with you? At the words, General. Madame Wang's legs buckled. Trembling, she pulled a stack of silver notes from her bosom. Her private retirement savings. Now that is more like it. I counted them, satisfied, and tucked them into my sleeve. Next item. The entire afternoon became a special inventory session before the Ling Garden gates. Any damage, inferior quality, or even items that merely looked old. I demanded cash compensation without mercy. Madame Wang's silver notes were quickly exhausted. In the end she unwillingly removed the bracelet from her wrist and the hairpins from her head to settle the debt. By the time the final cart was inspected, Madame Wang had transformed from a wealthy madam into a madwoman with disheveled hair and a body stripped bare. I closed the last ledger and looked at the empty-handed woman before me. Very well, everything has been returned clean. The general can probably rest in peace now. Madame Wang, take your time leaving. I will not see you off. Madame Wang glared at me. Eyes murderous. Shen Ning, you truly have a vicious heart. Are you not afraid of retribution? Retribution. I laughed until tears nearly fell. Madame Wang, those words should come from me. Not one item in this courtyard was created by the Shen family. Goods returning to their rightful owner is the greatest retribution of all. As for a vicious heart, I leaned close to her ear and whispered, this is only the beginning. The real show is yet to come. Madame Wang shuddered as though seeing a monster. She gave me one last look, then, supported by her maids, staggered away from the place that had become her nightmare. Watching the carts disappear into the distance, Xiao Kui stepped out from behind the door, clicking his tongue. Not only recovered the principal, but gained handsome interest as well. He eyed the stack of silver notes. The Shen family has been cleaned out by you this time. I waved the notes. This is called vomiting out whatever they ate, plus blood on top. The Shen family being cleaned out was not merely financial but reputational. The uproar of Madame Wang returning the dowry spread across the capital. Everyone knew how the Pingyang Marquis' residents had seized the principal wife's dowry and been forced by the ghost general to return it at the door. The Shen family's stench spread through every street, dragging Prince Duan's mansion into the filth as well. Shenqiao's days in the prince's mansion grew even harder. It was said Prince Duan had not visited her chambers for days and had taken 2 new concubines. Meanwhile I was busy counting money in Ling Garden. This jade pendant has excellent quality, worth 500 taels. This painting is a unique previous dynasty copy, priceless. Store it carefully. Inside the tomb chamber, Xiao Kui and I were like 2 misers inventorying the spoils that covered the floor. How do you plan to handle these? Xiao Kui asked, fiddling with a gold-inlaid dagger. I sorted the silver notes and stored them safely. Most will serve as travel funds when we leave the capital. As for the large furniture, garden lands, and fields that cannot be carried, I intend to sell them. Sell them? Xiao Kui raised an eyebrow. Those were your mother's properties. Can you bear to part with them? I replied indifferently. Mere external possessions. What is there to be reluctant about? Besides, those shops have been ruined by the Shen family's mismanagement for years. Better to exchange them for real gold and silver. More practical. Speaking of which, I suddenly remembered something. Right. Tomorrow I must make a trip into the city. For what? The Shen residence. A cold glint flashed in my eyes. To collect the rest. The next day I donned the court attire of a first-rank Imperial mandate madam and, with Yingsan in tow, strode arrogantly back to the Shen residence. This time no one dared block me. The main gate stood wide open. The gatekeeper saw me and froze like a man facing the living king of hell, not daring to breathe loudly. I walked straight into the main hall without hindrance. Inside, Marquis Shen sat on the Grandmaster chair, sighing endlessly while Madame Wang wiped tears beside him. Shenqiao had also returned and was sobbing about the grievances she suffered in the prince's mansion. The moment I entered, all 3 fell silent. You rebellious daughter, you still dare show your face here? Marquis Shen slammed the table, pointing at me and cursing. Look at the good deeds you've done. You've turned this house upside down, chickens and dogs restless. You've harmed your sister so she cannot lift her head in the prince's mansion. Do you still have the face to return? I looked at this nominal father. In my memories he had never once smiled at me. When my mother lived, he relied on her dowry to live extravagantly. After she died he immediately elevated Madame Wang to principal wife and never spared me, the legitimate daughter, a glance. Now watching him jump in rage, I found it merely amusing. Father, with those words, I adjusted my sleeves. Today I return for the good of the Shen family. For the good of the Shen family. Marquis Shen's beard trembled with fury. You brought ghosts and gods to force repayment, emptying the storehouses. Is that for the good of the Shen family? I found a chair, sat, and poured myself tea. Of course. Had I not reclaimed my mother's dowry in time, when father commits a crime and the family assets are confiscated, everything would have gone to the public treasury. Now the assets remain in my hands, still bearing the Shen surname, albeit Shen Ning's Shen. Is this not preserving the family fortune? You are cursing me to have my assets confiscated. Marquis Shen was so angry he grabbed the teacup and hurled it at me. Crash. Before the cup reached me it shattered mid-air. Ying San stood behind me, coldly staring at Marquis Shen. The sword in his hand had already slid half an inch from its sheath. Marquis Shen shuddered, only now remembering that behind me stood the killing god General Xiao. Nuff. I am too lazy to waste more words. I set the cup down and drew a yellowed paper from my bosom. This is the divorce letter my mother prepared before she passed. What? All 3 froze. My mother had long seen through your character, so she wrote this divorce letter in advance. I opened the paper. Only for my sake did she never present it. Now that I am grown and married, it is time for this letter to take effect. Since ancient times only husbands divorce wives. Where is the logic in a wife divorcing a husband? Preposterous. Marquis Shen roared in fury. Preposterous. I pointed to the red handprint on the letter. My maternal grandfather's seal from Jiangnan is upon it. What? Father wishes to sue the Qin family in Jiangnan, or argue before the emperor whether the crime of favoring concubines, destroying the wife, and plotting to seize assets is sufficient to strip your title. Marquis Shen's face turned the color of pig liver. Of course he dared not. The Pingyang Marquis' residence was now an empty shell, relying entirely on ancestral foundations and my imperial mandate. If the matter blew up, his title would end. What do you want? He slumped back into the chair. Very simple. I put the divorce letter away. I want you to sign this separation document, admitting you wronged my mother that year. Moreover, I pointed to my mother's portrait hanging in the center of the main hall. I want the three of you to kneel before my mother's portrait and kowtow 3 times in apology. Impossible. Madame Wang shrieked. I am the Marquis's principal wife. On what grounds should I kowtow to a dead woman? On the grounds that I currently hold first rank imperial mandate while you are merely a replacement wife. On the grounds that I possess evidence of your seizure of family assets. On the grounds that behind me stands the Jumbe General's mansion. I rose and looked down at them from above. Kneel or not. If not, tomorrow every street and alley in the capital will be plastered with the filthy deeds your Shen family has committed. At that time, not only will Shenqiao fail to remain prince's consort, Father's Marquis' hat may not stay on your head either. Deathly silence fell. Marquis Shen's face shifted through countless colors. Finally he gritted his teeth and thudded to his knees. Old master. Madame Wang stared in disbelief. Kneel. Marquis Shen roared. Have you not lost enough face already? Madame Wang's entire body trembled. Tears and snot covered her face, yet under her husband's murderous glare she finally knelt unwillingly. Seeing both parents kneel, Shenqiao dared not resist. She knelt behind them, full of grievance. Thud. Thud. 3 genuine kowtows. Watching the 3 of them kneel before my mother's portrait, the 10 years of accumulated resentment in my chest finally dissipated. Mother, do you see? They have knelt. The grievances you suffered back then. Your daughter has reclaimed them all for you. I spared them no further glance, turned, and walked out of the Shen residence with my head held high. The midday sun was bright, the breeze gentle. From this day forward, Shen Ning and the Shen family shared no further connection. The ghost of the Shen family had completely shattered their lives. Yet I knew that cornered dogs jump walls, let alone people, especially narrow-minded, vengeful ones like Madame Wang and Shenqiao. Pushed to the brink, they would stop at nothing. Sure enough, a few days later Ying San brought shocking news. Master, Madam, the Shen family has made a move. Inside the tomb chamber, Xiao Kui and I sat around a small fire roasting sweet potatoes. He peeled one and handed it to me. Speak. Madame Wang sold off her remaining private properties and gathered 10,000 taels of silver. She has contacted the bandit leader of Black Wind Mountain, One-Eyed Dragon. Black Wind Mountain. I bit into the sweet potato. The nest of bandits famous for murder, robbery and every evil deed. Ying San nodded. Precisely. Lady Wang had put a price of 10,000 taels of silver on the heads of everyone in Linguan estate, especially mine. She wanted us taken alive. The plan was for the bandits to ravage us first, then string our bodies up at the city gate for all to see. I choked violently on a piece of sweet potato, coughing hard as the realization hit me. What a vicious heart she has. I took a sip of water to clear my throat. She wants to ruin my reputation and leave me without a whole corpse. Then she'll spread word that I abandoned my wifely duties and ran off with a lover, conveniently swallowing up my entire dowry in the process. 10,000 taels. Xiao Kui let out a cold laugh. The killing intent in his eyes was so thick it felt almost tangible. Is my wife only worth 10,000 taels to them? He stood up, dusting off his hands. One-Eyed Dragon, that worthless scum. Back when I was suppressing the border rebellion, he wasn't even fit to carry my shoes. It seems his courage has grown over the years if he dares to touch someone of mine now. Seeing Xiao Qi's aura brimming with murderous rage, I didn't feel afraid. Instead, a spark of excitement flared in my chest. So, what should we do? Report it to the authorities. Report it to the authorities. Xiao Qi scoffed disdainfully. By the time those useless officials who only know how to stuff their faces arrive, the vegetables would have already wilted. Besides, since they want to play dirty, we'll play along to the very end. He walked over to the wall and took down the broken saber he had been meticulously maintaining. Shen Ning, haven't you always complained that Linguan is too quiet? Tonight, let's throw a lively welcoming banquet. Xiao Ku turned around. Behind his mask, his eyes gleamed with a bloodthirsty light. Since hell has no door, they've come knocking on their own. The night was pitch black. There was no moon, and the wind was high. Perfect conditions for killing and arson. The area around Linguan estate was deathly silent. Not even the sound of insects could be heard, only the eerie howling of the wind through the treetops. Xiao Kli and I sat on the roof of the main hall, watching a sea of torches approaching from afar like a blazing dragon. That's a desperate bunch. Over 100 of them, he said in a low voice. Leading them was a tall man on horseback wearing a black eye patch. It was none other than One-Eyed Dragon himself. Brothers. One-Eyed Dragon swung his broadsword and roared. The employer has spoken. Inside this Linguan estate is a beautiful seductress, along with mountains of gold and seas of silver. Kill all the men, take the women, and split the gold, silver, and treasures among yourselves. Kill. The bandits let out wolf-like howls as they charged toward the gates of Linguan estate like a pack of starving wolves. However, the moment they burst through the main gate, boom! A thunderous sound rang out as 1,000-pound stone suddenly slammed down, completely sealing off their retreat. Immediately after, countless torches lit up all around the walls. Who's there? One-Eyed Dragon's face paled in shock. He gripped the reins tightly. Ambush. A mocking voice drifted down from the rooftop. Xiao Kui stood tall above them, looking down at this ragtag group. He wasn't wearing his mask this time. Under the firelight, his resolute face appeared incredibly cold and stern. One-Eyed Dragon, it's been a few years. It seems the more you live, the fatter your courage gets. You even dare to charge into this general's Linguan estate. One-Eyed Dragon raised his head. Thanks to the torchlight, he finally saw Xiao Kli's face clearly. In that instant, his single remaining eye filled with terror as if he'd seen a ghost. Xiao Ku, the living king of hell. His voice cracked completely. During the border battle years ago, Xiao Kui had single-handedly charged through the bandit camp on horseback and taken one of his eyes. He would recognize that face even if it turned to ash. Weren't you already dead? He stammered. That's right. I died. Xiao Kui drew his broken saber and casually flourished it in a sword dance. So the one standing here now is the king of hell sent by the underworld to collect your life. Run away. One-Eyed Dragon was scared out of his wits. He yanked his horse's head around, intending to smash through the gate. Want to run? Xiao Kui laughed coldly. With a wave of his hand, he shouted, Archers, fire. In the next moment, countless arrows shot out from the shadows all around like a torrential rain. The bandits didn't even have time to react before large swaths of them fell. These weren't ordinary guards, they were Xiao Kli's former elite troops that he had secretly gathered. Veterans who had won 100 battles. Tonight in Linguan estate, there were no vengeful ghosts demanding lives. There was only a one-sided massacre. I sat on the roof, holding a pot of hot tea, watching the bloody scene of flesh and blood flying below. Strangely, my heart didn't ripple with the slightest wave. Perhaps I've been by Xiao Qi's side for too long and have become cold-blooded myself. Half an hour later, the battle ended. One-Eyed Dragon was tied up like a rice dumpling and thrown to the ground. The remaining bandits knelt on the earth, trembling like quivering leaves. Xiao Kui stepped on One-Eyed Dragon's chest, pressing the tip of his broken saber against the man's throat. Speak, who sent you? It was the Shen family. It was Lady Wang from the Shen family. To save his life, One-Eyed Dragon spilled everything like beans pouring from a bamboo tube. She gave me 10,000 taels and even provided a map of Linguan estate. Spare me, General. If I had known this was your territory, I wouldn't have dared come even if you gave me 10 times the courage. Very good. Xiao Kui sheathed his saber and turned to look at me. Madam, we have both witnesses and evidence. What should we do next? I set down my teacup, jumped down from the roof, and walked over to One-Eyed Dragon. Looking at this burly, savage bandit chief, I said, since the Shen family wants to play big, we'll give them a grand gift in return. I pulled out the blood-stained contract Lady Wang had written from my sleeve and waved it in front of One-Eyed Dragon. Take this contract along with the bodies of your brothers. You're coming with me to the capital. Go where? To beat the Linguan drum and submit an imperial petition. I looked toward the direction of the capital, cold light flashing in my eyes. Lady Wang colluded with mountain bandits to assassinate the wife of a court official and plotted rebellion. This crime is enough to exterminate the entire Shen clan. Dawn broke. The moment the city gates of the capital opened, a blood-soaked troop charged straight toward the Imperial palace gates. The Shen family was finished. It had been a full 10 years since the Linguan drum of the capital had last sounded. This drum had been established by the founding emperor specifically for the common people to voice their grievances and reach the heavens. However, whenever it was struck, regardless of whether the grievance was real or not, the striker had to roll across a 3-zhang long bed of nails. Only if they survived could they present their case before the emperor. Because of this, the drum had become nothing more than decoration. But today, this dust-covered drum was struck under the first rays of morning sunlight.
Dong dong.
Dong, the deep, muffled booms like rolling thunder awakened the entire capital from its slumber. The commander of the Imperial guards stationed at the palace rushed over with his men, only to be frightened into sucking in a cold breath by the scene before him. There were no people rolling on the nail bed covered in blood. Instead, a group of tied-up, pitch-black bandits were kneeling there. The leader, one-eyed dragon, had a wooden plaque hanging from his bloodied neck with 8 large characters written in fresh blood. Colluding with bandits to assassinate an official's wife. Beside the massive drum stood a woman dressed in the court robes of a first-rank titled lady. She held the drumstick with a cold, indifferent expression. Behind her stood a tall man wearing a shura mask and tattered black armor. The broken saber in his hand was still dripping blood, and the murderous aura around him was colder than the late autumn frost. Who struck the drum? The commander shouted loudly, his hand on the hilt of his sword. But he didn't dare step forward, for he had recognized that black armor. That's the standard armor of the Zhenbei army. I set down the drumstick, adjusted my tousled hair, and spoke in a voice that wasn't loud but carried clearly across the entire square. I, the widow Shen Ning, accuse the Marquise of Pingyang's household of colluding with the Black Wind Mountain bandits, hiring assassins to murder a first-rank titled Madam of the Court, and plotting rebellion. The moment the words, plotting rebellion, left my lips, the crowd erupted into an uproar. This was a crime punishable by the extermination of the entire clan. 9 degrees of kinship. Nonsense. From the crowd, Marquis Shen and Lady Wang, having just received the news, stumbled out in a panic. Behind them were Shenqiao and Prince Dan, both faces pale with terror. When Lady Wang saw that one-eyed dragon was still alive and tied up there, her face instantly turned as white as a sheet of paper. But she was, after all, a veteran of the inner resident struggles. She quickly recovered and pointed at me, screaming, "Shen Ning, you vile woman who doesn't know how to maintain your chastity. You actually colluded with a wild man and dare to bite back at us." Her finger jabbed viciously toward Xiaoqu behind me. "Everyone look. This is the wild man she's been keeping in Linguan estate. She's trying to bring her lover into the palace. Your Majesty. This woman is licentious beyond redemption. The Shen family should stuff her into a pig cage and drown her." The onlookers pointed and whispered among themselves. After all, with Xiao Kui wearing a mask, he really didn't look like a good person. Shenqiao also seized the opportunity like grabbing a life-saving straw and shrieked sharply, "Sister, sister. If you couldn't endure the loneliness, that's one thing, but how could you fabricate the serious crime of rebellion just to cover up your scandal and harm our parents? Sister, you truly have no conscience left." Looking at the mother-daughter pair who could change their faces faster than flipping a book, I found it utterly ridiculous. Ave wild man. I turned to look at Xiaokou. "General, someone is calling you my lover." The Xiaoqui let out a cold laugh. The sound, passing through his mask, carried a metallic quality that made one's scalp tingle. "Lover." He stepped toward Lady Wang one step at a time. The broken saber in his hand dragged across the ground, drawing a trail of sparks. "Since you all want to see this lover's face so badly, this general will let you see it to your heart's content." Under the horrified gazes of the Shen family, Xiaoqui slowly reached up and removed his shura mask. The early morning sunlight illuminated his sharply defined features. Though slightly pale and with some stubble, those eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. There wasn't a single person in the entire capital who didn't recognize this face. "Ah. Lady Wang let out a scream that didn't sound human. Her eyes rolled back, and she fainted on the spot from sheer terror. Marquis Shen's legs turned to jelly. With a thud, he collapsed to his knees, his pants instantly soaking wet as he stammered. Xiao! Xiao what? Xiao Kui casually tossed his mask into Marquis Shen's face. His voice boomed like thunder. Open your dog eyes wide and look carefully. Is this general a lover or not? Inside the golden Luan hall, a deathly silence reigned. The emperor sat upon the dragon throne, looking at the Shen family kneeling on the ground and trembling like frightened quails. Then he looked at Xiao Kui standing proudly in the center of the hall, his face showing a myriad of expressions, shock, wild joy, and a trace of wariness that was hard to detect. My beloved minister, you truly haven't died. The emperor's voice trembled slightly. This subject has a great life. Even the king of hell didn't want to take me. Xiao Kui cupped his hands in salute. Though he was a subject, his bearing was unyielding and proud. This subject has been recuperating from his injuries in Linguan estate for half a month. If the Shen family hadn't gone too far by hiring assassins to kill, this subject wouldn't have wanted to disturb your majesty either. With that, he presented the bloodstained assassination contract. Your majesty, this is the contract obtained from the bandit leader. It bears Lady Wang's personal signature and the Shen Marquis's private seal. The evidence is irrefutable. The emperor took the contract. After just one glance, rage exploded across his face. He flung the paper viciously at Marquis Shen. You wretched thing. It's one thing to embezzle on normal days, but you actually dared to collude with bandits to harm my beloved minister's wife. How many heads do you have to spare for this? Marquis Shen was already scared witless. He could only kowtow desperately. Your Majesty, spare me. Your Majesty, spare me. It was all that poisonous woman Wang Shi. This subject knew nothing about it. Old master. Lady Wang, who had just regained consciousness, looked at her husband in disbelief. Clearly, you were the one who said that as long as Shen Ning died, we could reclaim the family assets. Now you're pushing all the blame onto me. You vile woman. Shut your mouth. The two of them tore into each other right there in the Golden Lawn Hall, revealing their ugly true faces. Shenqiao, kneeling to the side, had already cried her makeup into a complete mess. Prince Duan wished he could find a hole to crawl into. He immediately stepped forward and knelt. Imperial father, your son knew nothing about this matter. Your son requests to immediately sever all ties with these traitorous ministers and thieves. Upon hearing this, Shenqiao completely collapsed, her eyes filled with utter despair. In this moment of crisis, even her own people were abandoning her. I stood to the side, watching this farce coldly. My heart was filled only with icy indifference. This is what they call family. This is what they call a husband. When disaster strikes, they're even colder than strangers. Nuff. The emperor waved his hand in disgust. By my decree, the Marquis of Pingyang, Shen Di, colluded with bandits and plotted rebellion. He is immediately stripped of his title, his assets confiscated, and exiled 3,000 miles. Lady Wang plotted to harm an official's wife, and shall be executed by poison. Shenqiao knew of the plot but failed to report it. She shall be sent to the musical brothels as a commoner. The imperial edict has been issued. The 3 members of the Shen family were completely paralyzed. They were dragged out by the imperial guards like dead dogs. Finally, the hall was peaceful once more. The emperor's gaze fell upon Xiao Kui and me, his expression softening considerably. Xiao, my beloved minister, you have suffered greatly this time. I must reward you handsomely. He restored Xiao Kuo to his original post, additionally conferred upon him the title of Duke of the State, and awarded him 10,000 taels of gold. Xiao Kui shook his head. Your Majesty, this subject sustained severe injuries. I'm afraid I can no longer shoulder heavy responsibilities. This subject only wishes to resign from office and take my wife south to Jiangnan to recuperate. The emperor was stunned for a moment. Then, a flash of delight appeared in his eyes. Xiao Kui controlled heavy troops and had achieved too much merit. He had always been a thorn in the emperor's side. Now that he was voluntarily resigning and handing over power, how could the emperor not be overjoyed? If my beloved minister has truly decided, then I approve. The emperor waved his hand decisively and issued another decree. Shen Ning, titled wife, protected her husband with merit. She was granted the title of first rank madam, 1,000 taels of gold, and permission to sever all ties with the Shen family and establish her own household. Thank you for your Majesty's great kindness. Xiaoqui and I exchanged a glance. In each other's eyes, we saw a trace of liberation. We had won this battle, won it completely. The Shen family's downfall happened faster than I had imagined. On the day their assets were confiscated, I went to take one last look. The once glorious Marquis Manor, now sealed with official notices. Marquis Shen, wearing a kangyu and chains, looked as if he had aged 20 years. When he saw me, there was only numbness left in his eyes. Lady Wang had already drunk poison in prison. It was said that even before she died, she was still cursing me to die a horrible death. As for Shenqiao, it was said that she went mad on the way to the musical brothel. She held a rock all day calling it her child, and eventually slipped and fell into the river to her death. Those who had bullied me, those who had devoured my dore, now they were dead or ruined. The Shen family no longer existed in this capital. But none of this had anything to do with me anymore. 10 miles outside the city, a magnificent caravan was being prepared for departure. It was a procession so luxurious it left people speechless. In front, Xiaoqi's personal guards cleared the way. Behind them followed exactly 50 large horse-drawn carriages. The carriages carried not only my recovered dowry, with interest demanded from the Shen family, but also all the assets Xiaoqi had accumulated over the years, along with countless gold, silver, and treasures bestowed by the emperor. It was truly wealth that could rival a nation. I sat inside the largest and most luxurious carriage at the front, holding a thick ledger and performing the final inventory. 5,000 taels of gold, 200,000 taels of silver, 300 pieces of antiques and paintings, and several large estates with hot springs and farmland. Testesk. I closed the ledger and couldn't help but sigh. Xiuqui, don't you think we've earned a bit too much this time? The carriage curtain was lifted, revealing Xiaoqi's face, which had regained its healthy color. He poked his head in. He had changed out of his armor into a refined azure scholar's robe, shedding some of his killing aura and gaining an air of scholarly elegance. Too much. He climbed into the carriage and sat beside me, casually peeling a tangerine for me. Compared to this general's life, what is this bit of money worth? That's true. I accepted the tangerine and nodded matter-of-factly. My compensation fee is quite expensive. The caravan slowly began to move. The carriage wheels rolled over the bluestone road, producing a steady rumble. We were leaving this city full of schemes and bloodshed, heading toward the fabled Jiangnan where spring lasted all 4 seasons. Once we reached Jiangnan, what do you plan to do? Xiaoqi asked suddenly as he watched the scenery receding outside the window. First buy a large mansion with hot springs, then purchase several hundred mu of mountain forest. I counted on my fingers. After that, open a medical clinic. When I'm in a good mood, I'll save a few people. When I'm not, I'll close the doors and count my money. And you? Xiaoqi smiled. He reached out and gently took my hand. This was the first time we had been so intimate, yet it felt as natural as if we had known each other for lifetimes. Then I'll be your shopkeeper. After all, with such a large fortune, someone has to help you manage it so no blind fool tries to take it away. I raised an eyebrow at him. Why would the Duke of the State want to be a live-in son-in-law? What's wrong with that? Xiaoqi leaned closer, his eyes full of laughter. As long as Madame provides the meals, I'll cling to you for the rest of my life. I looked at him. This man who had fought shoulder to shoulder with me and warmed me in the darkness. Fine. I gripped his hand back, smiling so widely my brows curved like crescent moons. As long as you behave, I'll support you for life. The bright sunlight streamed through the carriage curtains, shining on the carriages filled with gold and silver, and also on the two of us. This heaven bestowed wealth. I had received it. But even more precious than wealth was this freedom that had been lost and now regained, and the shopkeeper who was willing to accompany me for the rest of our days. And so, the story concludes with this reminder: in a cruel world, kindness alone is not enough to survive. Only when you are clear-headed enough, strong enough, and brave enough to save yourself, will fate no longer be able to swallow you so easily. The story ends here for now. If it touched your heart or left you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and share Raccoon Tale to help more stories come to life. See you in the next tale.